You ain't nothing but a bunch of stump.
Therefore, these proceedings are now
Putting
concluded.
somebody who is...
Unravel the terrifying tale of Aileen Wuornos, a name engraved into the darkest corners of American history as the country's first recorded female serial murderer. Welcome to our YouTube video about Aileen Wuornos, the well-known female serial murderer. Join us as we explore this iconic figure's life, crimes, and complex reasons, whose case continues to captivate and spark debates about justice, mental health, and the nature of violence. Prepare to unearth the riveting details about one of history's most notorious characters as we journey through the dark tunnels of Aileen Wuornos' turbulent past and her terrible contacts in 1980s Florida. Wuornos was born Aileen Carol Pittman on February 29, 1956, in Rochester, Michigan. Diane Wuornos, born 1939, married Aileen's father, 18-year-old Leo Pittman, 1936, 1969 on June 3, 1954, when she was 14. Diane gave birth to Keith, Aileen's older brother, on March 14, 1955. Diane filed for divorce after less than 2 years of marriage and 2 months before Aileen's birth. She gave birth to Aileen when she was 16. Wuornos never knew her father. Leo Pittman received a life sentence in 1967 for kidnapping and raping a 7-year-old child. In January 1969, Leo Pittman, who had been diagnosed with schizophrenia, hanged himself in prison, resulting in his death. Diane abandoned her children in January 1960, when they were about 4 years old, leaving them with their maternal grandparents, Lori and Britta Wuornos, both alcoholics, who legally adopted Keith and Aileen on March 18, 1960. By the age of 11, Wuornos had started engaging in sexual activities at school in exchange for cigarettes, drugs, and food. She had also engaged in sexual activity with her brother. Wuornos said that her drunken grandfather had sexually raped and beaten her as a youngster. Before assaulting her, he made her strip naked. After a family acquaintance raped her, she became pregnant in 1970 at the age of 14. On March 23, 1971, Wuornos gave birth to a boy in a facility for unwed mothers, and the child was subsequently adopted. She dropped out of school a few months after her child was born, just around the time her grandma died of liver disease. When Wuornos was 15, her grandpa evicted her from the house, and she began living in the woods near her former home, supporting herself through prostitution. Series of murders. Wuornos murdered 7 guys in 12 months.
And let me kill the rest of those guys to turn me into a serial killer.
All of the guys were drivers between the ages of 40 and 65. Richard Charles Mallory, 51, owned an electronics store in Clearwater. The murder occurred on November 30th, 1989.
Let them know that I know that the cops knew who I was after Richard Mallory died.
Wuornos said that Mallory beat, raped, and sodomized her after driving her to an abandoned location for sexual services. Wuornos' first victim, Mallory, claimed that she killed him in self-defense. Later, it was displayed that Mallory had previously lived convicted of attempted rape in Maryland. 2 days after Mallory's murder, a Volusia County deputy sheriff discovered her abandoned automobile. A Volusia County deputy sheriff found his body several miles away in a wooded location on December 13th. He had lived shot many times, and 2 gunshots to the left lung were determined to be the cause of death. David Andrew Spears, 47, is a construction worker from Winter Garden. He was notified missing on May 19, 1990. On June 1, 1990, authorities discovered his naked body along US 19 in Citrus County.
Committing these murders, Aileen had a massive advantage of surprise. They would not have expected a gun to come from the bag. You do not expect a female serial killer.
Someone shot him 6 times with a .22 pistol. Charles Edmund Carskadden, age 40, was a part-time rodeo worker. The murder occurred on May 3, 1990. On June 6, 1990, authorities discovered his body in Pasco County. Someone shot him 9 times with a .22 caliber firearm. Upon discovery, the body was wrapped in an electric blanket and showed severe signs of deterioration. Witnesses witnessed Wuornos driving Cascadian's automobile and pawning a gun believed to be Cascadian's. Peter Abraham. Siams is a 65-year-old former merchant seaman. Siams relocated from Jupiter, Florida to Arkansas in June 1990. On July 4, 1990, authorities discovered his automobile near Orange Springs, Florida. Witnesses observed Moore and Wuornos exiting the vehicle, and investigators found Wuornos' handprint on the interior door handle. No one ever located his remains. Troy Eugene Burris, 50, is an Ocala, Florida-based sausage salesman. On July 31, 1990, someone reported his disappearance. On August 4, 1990, authorities found his body in a wooded area near State Road 19 in Marion County. He sustained 2 gunshot wounds. Charles Richard Dick Humphreys, 56, is a retired Air Force major, a former state child abuse investigator, and a former chief of police. Murder occurred on September 11, 1990. Marion County authorities discovered his remains on September 12, 1990. He was found fully clothed with 7 gunshot wounds to his head and torso. Suwannee County was the location of his automobile. Walter Geno Antonio, 62, is a trucker, security guard, and reserve police officer. On November 19, 1990, someone discovered Antonio's utterly naked body near a secluded logging road in Dixie County. He had suffered 4 gunshot wounds. 5 days later, authorities found his automobile in Brevard County. In the inquiry, discovers her early criminal activities. On May 27, 1974, authorities in Jefferson County, Colorado, arrested Wuornos for driving under the influence, disorderly conduct, and shooting a .22 caliber pistol from a moving car. She was 18. Eventually, authorities charged her for failing to appear. Wuornos hitchhiked to Florida in 1976, where she met Louis Gratz Fell, 69, the president of a yacht club. They married immediately, and the local newspaper's society sections published the announcement. Wuornos was constantly involved in fights at their local tavern and spent a short time in jail for assault. She also beat Fell with his cane, prompting him to obtain a restraining order against her within weeks of their marriage. On July 14, 1976, she got arrested at Bernie's Club in Mansalona, Antrim County, Michigan for assault and disturbing the peace. She threw a cue ball at a bartender's head. On July 17th, her brother Keith died from esophageal cancer, and Wuornos received $10,000 from his life insurance policy. Wuornos and Fell ended their marriage on July 21st after just 9 weeks. In August 1976, authorities fined Wuornos $105 for drunk driving. She paid the fine with the money she inherited from her brother and spent the remaining 2 months on indulgences, including a new car, which she crashed shortly after. In 1978, at the age of 22, she attempted suicide by shooting herself in the stomach. From the ages of 14 to 22, she attempted suicide 6 times. On May 20, 1981, authorities arrested Wuornos in Edgewater, Florida, for armed robbery of a convenience store. She stole $35 and 2 packs of cigarettes. She was sent to prison on May 4, 1982, and freed on June 30, 1983. On May 1, 1984, authorities arrested Wuornos for attempting to pass fraudulent checks at a Key West bank. On November 30, 1985, authorities identified her as a suspect in the theft of a pistol and ammunition from Pasco County. On January 4, 1986, police in Miami arrested Wuornos and charged her with car theft, resisting arrest, and obstructing justice after she produced identification under her aunt's name. Police in Miami discovered a .38 caliber pistol and a box of ammunition in the stolen automobile. On June 2, 1986, Volusia County deputy sheriffs held Wuornos for questioning when a male friend accused her of pulling out a revolver in his car and demanding $200. Police discovered that Wuornos was carrying extra ammunition and recovered a 22-round handgun under the passenger seat she had occupied. In 1986, Wuornos, 30, met Tyria Moore, 24, a motel maid at Zodiac, a homosexual bar in Daytona Beach. They moved in together, and Wuornos supported them with her prostitution earnings. On July 4, 1987, the Daytona Beach police arrested Wuornos and Moore at a bar, suspecting them of assaulting and battering someone with a beer bottle. Wuornos and Tyria Moore abandoned victim Peter Seam's automobile on July 4, 1990, following an accident. Rhonda Bailey, who observed the accident, provided police with a description of two ladies, prompting a media push to find them. Police also discovered some of the victims' items in pawn shops. A match was found between the fingerprint obtained on a receipt at one of the pawn shops and the print left in Seam's car. Wuornos had a criminal record in Florida, and her fingerprints were in a database. On January 9, 1991, authorities arrested Wuornos at the Last Resort Automobile Bar in Volusia County, claiming she had an outstanding warrant for Lori Grody. The following day, authorities found Moore in Pittston, Pennsylvania. She agreed to get a confession from Wuornos in exchange for immunity from prosecution. The police took Moore back to Florida and placed her in a motel. Under police supervision, she made many phone calls to Wuornos, appealing for assistance clearing her record. 3 days later, on January 16, 1991, Wuornos admitted to the murders. She said the males attempted to rape her, and she murdered them in self-defense. Arlene Prale, 44, legally adopted Wuornos in November 1991, after seeing her portrait in a newspaper. Wuornos faced trial for the murder of Richard Charles Mallory on January 14, 1992.
Let them know that I know that the cops knew who I was after Richard Mallory died. I left prints everywhere, and they covered it up.
Although prior convictions are generally inadmissible in criminal prosecutions, Florida's Williams rule allowed the trial to incorporate evidence from her other crimes to demonstrate a pattern of illegal activity. Moore's testimony played a crucial role in finding Wuornos guilty of Mallory's murder on January 27, 1992. During her sentence, psychologists for the defense testified that Wuornos had a mental illness and diagnosed her with borderline personality disorder and antisocial personality disorder. The court sentenced her to death 4 days later. During the trial, Wuornos' defense presented evidence that Mallory had a prior conviction for attempted rape in Maryland and had served time in a maximum security correctional facility, specializing in the rehabilitation of sexual offenders. Records received from the correctional institution indicate that Mallory received treatment and observation between 1958 and 1962 for a criminal charge of assault with intent to rape. These statistics also show 8 years of overall therapy at the clinic. 1961, according to the newspaper, it was followed by Mr. Mallory that he possessed strong sociopathic trends. However, the judge refused to bring the documents to court as evidence and denied Wuornos' plea for a retrial. Wuornos pleaded no contest to the murders of Charles Richard Humphreys, Troy Eugene Barres, and David Andrew Spears on March 31, 1992, stating that she wanted to get right with God. In her statement to the court, she said, in part, "I wanted to confess to you that Richard Mallory did violently rape me as I've told you, but these others did not. They were beginning." Wuornos received 3 additional death sentences on May 15, 1992. Wuornos pleaded guilty in June 1992 to Charles Edmund Carskadon's murder. In November 1992, the court sentenced her to death 5 times. After pleading guilty to the murder of Walter Gino Antonio in February 1993, the court convicted Wuornos to death. Authorities did not charge her with the murder of Peter Abraham Seams because his body was never convalesced. She received the death sentence 6 times. Wuornos told various conflicting tales concerning the deaths. She initially claimed that all 7 men had raped or attempted to rape her when she worked as a prostitute, but she later recanted her claim of self-defense, citing robbery and a wish to leave no witnesses as the reasons for murder. During an interview with filmmaker Nick Broomfield, Wuornos informed him that it was self-defense, but she couldn't tolerate being on death row, where she had been for 10 years at the time, and wanted to die. On March 12, 1988, Wuornos charged a Daytona Beach bus driver with assault. She claimed he shoved her off the bus after a disagreement. During the incident, Moore was determined to be a witness. Wuornos later testified during her trial. "It was love beyond imaginable. Earthly words cannot express how I feel about Tyria." Wuornos claimed to love Moore before her execution still. Execution, last words. Wuornos' execution by lethal injection occurred on October 9, 2002. She declined her last dinner, which may have cost less than $20, and instead chose a cup of coffee. Her final words were, "Yes, I'd just like to say I'm sailing with the Rock, and I'll return on Independence Day with Jesus." June 6th, like the film. Big mothership and all, I'll be back. She died at 9:47 a.m. EDT. In 1976, the United States Supreme Court reinstated the death penalty, and Florida executed her, making her the second woman to be destroyed. Wuornos died, and her body was cremated. Wuornos' childhood friend Dawn Botkins spread her ashes under a tree in her native Michigan. At Wuornos' request, they performed Natalie Merchant's song, Carnival, from her album Tiger Lily at her funeral. Wuornos spent many hours listening to this album while on death row. Upon discovering this, Merchant used the song in the end credits of Nick Broomfield's documentary, Aileen, The Life and Death of a Serial Killer. Thank you for joining us on the journey into the life and crimes of Aileen Wuornos, the first well-known female serial murderer. We hope that this investigation has shed light on the complexities of her case and prompted additional thought about the nature of crime and its consequences for society. If you found this video thought-provoking, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing to our channel for more content about the intriguing and sometimes unnerving aspects of the human experience. Until next time, be curious and safe.